Mr. Keon Coleman is not the same kind of funny that Jameis is. Like, not at all. Like, they're just not the same. But Keon Coleman is really funny.
Yes.
As a human, as a person, just he's incredibly smart. Like, I'm not saying it's all an act, but like he knows what he's talking about. He's not just like the dumb guy that's like not really aware. He's very intelligent. He's very bright. And man, he is viral clip after viral clip after viral clip. And it's May, so none of it has to do with any play on the field right now. It is literally just all interviews, you know, his introductory press conference, which we talked about last week on the show. Everything that he does in front of a mic is close. It's not the same, but it's close to the Jameis Winston level of like must tune in. And if a mic is in front of Jameis, if a mic is in front of Keon, you got to tune in. You got to see what he's saying. We'll just talk about some of the funny stuff he did this week.
I think it might be at that level, TJ. Keon, he has dropped some bombs on us, and he is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's close, man. It is close. Like, when he's got a mic in front of him, you got to find out what's being said, what's going on.
I need Hard Knocks in Buffalo. That's all I'm saying.
Can that happen? They won too many games for that. Or did Hard Knocks switch around like how they do that?
I don't know, but
I thought Hard Knocks was like you had to be a bad team. Buffalo was like in the AFC champ, like, you know, like they were
at HBO. Get your ass to Buffalo.
Yeah. Remember the quarterback episode that you had a few years ago? I need a wide receiver one. Follow Odell around Miami, Keon up in Buffalo, and then find one more. Find one more guy anywhere. Hopefully somebody in Cleveland, so we get to see some Jameis like background footage.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, those are my three. I want to see OBJ down in Miami. I could think that'd be, you know, him and Tyreek or whatever. So anyway, all right, watch this Keon clip. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that he did this week. Watch this clip, and then we'll talk about this one specifically, a couple other funny ones, and we'll go from there.
Of course, they want to play. They playing in the maddest HELL Bowl. They mad, but they lost. What y'all mad
Right.
because y'all lost? Y'all think this 2021 y'all supposed to just get in because y'all Georgia? Y'all work like that. You would have won. You would have found out who was better between Florida State and Georgia. You would have played us in the matter bowl, the bowl that matter. We're gonna play y'all in the bowl that don't matter. That's a waste of time. But y'all would have won and did what y'all supposed to do. Y'all would have had to see us.
Right.
Would have been not doing it the whole time. All that barking would have put the spirit straight through you, cuz. Ain't no barking. That's dead. They'd have found out, but the world may never know because Georgia decided to lose.
That's true.
We should question their toughness to Bama. How y'all keep choking?
How do y'all keep choking to Bama? So several shots there, several things that are really, really funny. But, okay, the implication is if Georgia wins, Georgia gets the 1 seed, Florida State stays in the 4 seed. You know, we don't have to go over the whole snub thing again, but I really do think that Alabama got drug in because they wanted an SEC team in. They couldn't put Alabama without having Texas because of the head-to-head. And so Georgia losing is essentially what cost Florida State the playoff. Otherwise, it would have been Georgia, Washington, Michigan, Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State. I think they would have just taken those 4 teams, and that would have been the way that it finished because you had to have an SEC team in there. Alabama got in. You had to drag Texas with them. And this is what Keon's saying. Keon's saying, like, hey, if you guys would have just won, if you wouldn't have choked to Georgia, we would have seen you and found out. Now, without Travis, who knows, right? Like, I'm not going to stand on that hill. But he's not necessarily wrong about why the game went down the way that it did. Florida State didn't feel like they had anything to prove in that game, and Georgia wanted to go make a statement after getting embarrassed by Alabama, after choking to Alabama. Again, this happens quite often where Georgia's the best team in the country and chokes to Alabama. Saban owned them for as great as Kirby is and as great as that program has been, and Keon was not letting them off of the hook at all.
No, and, you know, you had 10 players drafted, right, to include your quarterback who would not have been available if the game had been played in the playoffs. So you had 9 players, and I think every single one of them, except for Deloach, if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, basically 8 of the 9 draft eligible players did not play in the game in the Orange Bowl because they said, listen, we did everything we were supposed to do. We went out. We won 12-0 in the regular season. We beat Louisville in the ACC championship. We did not give a single touchdown up after Jordan Travis went out, outside of a terrible roughing the passer penalty, like Florida State did everything they were supposed to do. So I don't blame Keon Coleman and anyone else, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, all these guys for sitting the game out in the Orange Bowl, because those are meaningless. And we talked about it at the time, TJ, that was a meaningless game. And if they had got to the playoff, they would have had a month to get healthy and rest and get their bodies right. And I think they could have beat any team in the country. Without Jordan Travis, that hill is a lot harder to climb. But I certainly think they could have done it, because there was not a single team in the college football playoff that I watched that I said, damn, Florida State couldn't have beat them. No, that defense, what Adam Fuller had his defense playing at that level, they could have hung with anybody. It would have been a 4-quarter game against anybody.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What did Michigan score, in regulation, or really through like 3 quarters? The score of that game was what, 13-10? You're telling me that Florida State's defense couldn't have, if Alabama and Michigan could hold each other to 13-10, Florida State's defense couldn't have done something similar? Now, would Florida State's offense have just lit it up against Michigan or Alabama? Probably not. Like, would it maybe have been 10-7? Would it maybe? Yes. But, for all the complaints about like, oh, we're going to get a low scoring game, if, we're going to get a defensive battle, that's what you got in that Alabama-Michigan game. And so, yeah, I agree. And then, I looked it up. Like, nobody that got drafted was playing. Obviously Deloach got undrafted, free agent to the Bucks. Nope.
Yeah.
Nobody that was drafted played in that game. And you look back at it, and you're certainly like still frustrated by the snub, but like over it, right? Like, it's May now. Like, you're kind of like, all right, well, all right.
I'm not over it.
I'm over it in the sense of like, we're not doing videos specifically on the snub anymore. Like, I've moved on a little bit. I'll never fully move on, right? But Keon's not necessarily wrong in the fact of like, well, if you just would have choked, which they seem to do quite a bit. We will get right back to it, but first I want to give some love to Rohan Law. Doug Rohan over at Rohan Law on Twitter is your must-follow for all FSU ACC updates. He has been all over the litigation there, and he has helped explain the process in very simple terms. If you haven't done so yet, follow his social media accounts. It's on X, Instagram, or Facebook, but again, the best one to do is Twitter or X, so that you can see everything going on with the FSU ACC spat. Rohan Law is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and they want to be your best friend on your worst day. If you've been arrested or hurt at work, his team is ready to help protect your rights. Call Rohan Law for your free consultation today. Tell them that Double Fries, No Slaw sent you. There's also, I think, because the amount of people that care about the Orange Bowl, when Florida State very much themselves did not care about it. I mean, they went and cashed the check. Florida State never cared about it. Florida State's fans never cared about it. Most of the players never did. You think about the opt-out narrative, right? Their narrative of not playing. Man, so many of those guys were injured, hurt, banged up, and had been putting off surgeries, had been putting off taking care of their own bodies. Braden Fisk and Tatum Bethune and a lot of those guys played a lot of those games down the stretch, banged up and hurt and bruised. And Keon did, Johnny did, a lot of the guys out there. Trey Benson, didn't even play in the ACC championship. And so, you see the opt-out narrative of bad culture and this, that, and the other. And more so what it was you think about the guys that were just truly hurt. Okay, Braden, Jared Verse, first round pick, no real issue with him opting out, right? You knew he was going to go top 20, top 15, somewhere in there. But then both wide receivers that got drafted were hurt. Trey Benson didn't play in the ACC championship. Braden Fisk tried to go, just couldn't make it work. Tatum Bethune banged up, hurt. So you're talking 5, 6 guys with Verse that sat out. Akeem Dent had been banged up through the year. You had both corners. Renardo had struggled with some stuff. I think Jarian was pretty healthy, could have gone. But if you're Jarian Jones and you're trying to go to the NFL, which he did in the 3rd round, and you have 7 of your teammates that are not going to be able to play due to injury or first round. Like, are you playing in that game? So anyway, the narrative around like, oh, well, the culture wasn't the thing. All of those guys would have put off surgery and probably, this sucks, would have hurt their draft stock had they gone to the playoff, but they all would have done it. Like nobody was opting out at that point. And so that, something that very much gets overlooked, gets not thought about, not talked about. Guys weren't going to sacrifice their careers. It wasn't that they were, the narrative of like, oh, they were selfish, right? Like, they were selfish because they just cared about themselves and go to the NFL. Well, if that was the case, good, be selfish and worry about yourself when it comes down to millions of dollars. But that wasn't really the narrative. The narrative was, I'm not going to delay getting surgery and getting my body right for an exhibition game 30 days later, right? Like I'm going to just do what's best for my future. If it had been a playoff game, all of those guys would have played. And so, just dumb to me, dumb for that to have ever been a narrative.
And the playoff would have expanded this year if not for Jim Phillips, just a terrible conference commissioner. It would have been expanded this year, and Florida State would have been in. Like, there's no doubt. And honestly, Florida State probably would have been a 3 or 4 seed because they knew they could put them in there regardless. Yeah. But, moving forward, these games, bowl games no longer matter, TJ. They just do not at all. Like, I used to get excited about, even a couple of years ago, not the Champs Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl here in Orlando against Oklahoma. I was excited for that game. I went to it. It was it was a blast. And it felt like the players played in that game and it meant something to them. Bowl games no longer matter. You are either in the college football playoff or you're not. And if you're not, don't even bother playing. Don't risk the injury. Don't risk anything. And I don't blame any player who says, no, I'm not playing in a bowl game. I'm not playing in the Citrus Bowl or the Gasparilla Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Down in Tampa, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Don't play in those games. I think Florida State, if you're a college football team and you're serious about football, which Florida State has shown they clearly are, you are either in the playoff or bust at that point. And if you're not in the playoff, then I expect every marquee player that is going to the NFL that has a draft potential within a few months, sit it out. Like, there's no point in playing in that game, in my opinion.
So that wasn't all that Keon had to say. We'll talk about a little bit more of it. We kind of got on a bowl opt-out tangent, but before we get to him, more of what he had to say. Check out this shirt where he's wearing an Orange Bowl shirt,
Love
FSU. A little bit of it reminds me of the that we do a little trolling meme that goes around. So good stuff there. Okay, so he also talk about the Tiger Woods thing. You sent me the video of it, but he was asked what he likes to do outside of football, and what did he say?
Yeah, it's not the first time he said it. He's actually said it. Shout out Battle Zen and Ingram Smith. I think that was the first time I heard him say it. But it was just the combine interview, and they're like, "What do you like to do outside of football?" He's like, I golf a little bit. I like to chill the house. I like to go bowling. And one of the Buffalo Bills people said, "You golf?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm Tiger Woods. Could. I'm not Tiger Woods." And it was, the whole room just exploded in laughter. And Barstool took off with it. Pardon my take. Like, every
the PGA tweeted, not necessarily on that, but just like
the PGA,
the controlled chaos
PGA
stuff that he talked about.
Tweeted. The main PGA Tour. The main PGA Tour account tweeted it out, and it was amazing. Yeah.
His stuff is starting to go, like you said, like every time he gets a mic, it is starting to be like, okay, who's going to pick up on it? Like, everything he says is hilarious. Everything he says like has the potential or the chance of going viral. I just kind of watch Red Zone every weekend anyway, so I can't wait to just watch all the Keon stuff this year for the Bills, because I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Those aren't even all of what he said. Like, he had talk, he's talking about LSU, calling them sorry. He has his stuff at the press conferences have been hilarious. He really is just freaking hilarious.
He gets his jackets half off in the summer.
He's everything he ends up saying is really, really funny. So big shout out to Keon Coleman.
100%.
Fan for life. It's also good to see him still repping some of the FSU stuff. There's the false narrative of like, oh, well, Florida State just got him. Yeah, I saw somebody say like, oh, well, he mentioned learning football from Michigan State. Yeah, that is where he learned football. Like Florida State went out and got a very known, proven commodity, like the best.
We went and got the best receiver available.
Yeah, the best player in the portal last year. Florida State went out and got, and we did, this is no shot at anybody at FSU. We did no development with Keon Coleman this year. Like, we got a great player, and we had him play for 12 games, and then we logged out, or 13 games. Well, no, I guess he was out one. And then we logged out. Like, that was it. So the idea of like, oh, well, Florida State didn't develop it. Like he said, he learned football at Michigan State, in that same clip with the other stuff was dumb. But that's what you get when you get people who really don't know what they're talking about football. So Keon, a lot of fun. Excited to watch his career go on.